Action.
When I lost my uncle, it was devastating because simultaneously, when I lost my uncle, when he passed, I also lost my son. And my son, he didn't die, but our relationship was severely strained. I'll get back to that in a second, but right now, I really want to focus on the importance of my uncle. You see, my family, most people, they're married. And so I myself, I'm divorced. And saying goodbye to your children is one of the most difficult things that any parent can do. As a man, I didn't have the emotional awareness or the emotional intelligence to be able to handle the pain of every weekend saying goodbye to my children. It's not goodbye forever, but I know that my role, my duty is to be there to protect my children, to guide my children, to impart whatever information I have upon my children. And so my uncle that passed away, unfortunately, he was divorced and he understood hardship. My uncle was one of those types of guys. He was one of those men, a man's man, fight hard, play hard, but simultaneously, one of the aspects that we really don't focus on is that men love hard, because every person that we have an emotional connection with, not only do we have to provide guidance, but simultaneously we have to be willing to protect these people. And so when you love a person so much that you're willing to sacrifice your life for these people, it puts men in a very interesting position to deal with grief and losing a person that you so care about. Now, when my uncle passed, I was on my way to work and it hit me like just a sack of bricks. It just knocked me back and I really couldn't breathe. I couldn't process it, but I still had to go through the motions. Well, in this process, I tried to reach out to my oldest son. Our relationship has been fractured ever since the divorce. And it's really hard to try to raise a preteen teenager over a phone or over a distance. His mother gave him the option when he was 13 years old. She told him, hey, if you don't want to go see your dad, you don't have to. And how the hell do you force a 13-year-old person to do something that they don't want to do? My son, he likes to play video games like so many children do play video games. I myself, I'm not a gamer. And so since our relationship was strained when my uncle passed, I tried to reach out to my son. I called him, ring, ring, ring. No response. I text him, no response. And this goes on for about a week. And then I'm really anxious because as much as my uncle meant to me, a lot of the times when I was with my uncle, my son was with me too. And I think that it was a great learning experience for both of us. Having mentorship from other men is one of the most bestest experience that any man could possibly have on how to navigate this journey of being a man. When my children arrive, I'm excited, but it's a bittersweet thing because I'm taking them to a funeral. And now with my smaller children, my two younger sons, I see my oldest son and I'm taken aback. I'm filled with a myriad of emotions. Number one is anger. Like, hey man, how come you didn't return my phone calls? Why didn't you text me back? I've been reaching out to you. Like, what is this? How in the world do you think that you just have the luxury to disappear from my life and then pop back up and everything's just supposed to be okay? At that moment in time, as I'm mourning, as I'm angry, as I'm sad, as all these a convergence of emotions are upon me, I'm trying to talk to a 16-year-old boy who's wanting to come into manhood. And so I challenge my son like a man. I say, hey, when I call you, answer the phone. When I text you, please respond. And if you can't do that, hey son, there has to be some type of respect in this relationship. The same courtesies that I give you, I need those in return. And so it was a very intense confrontation. And from that intense confrontation, I put my children to sleep. After that, I had what I thought was positive dialogue with my boy, and I put him to sleep also. So the next morning I get up, it's the same routine. I make breakfast. That's what daddy does. Bacon, eggs, biscuits, all the thing. And this is all in the midst of grief. You still have to be present for those that you love. When I wake up my children, I put my children in the shower. Boom, I get them washed up, get them dressed, ready for the funeral. Okay, everybody's eating, everyone's bathed. Let me go get into the shower too so we can go to this funeral. When I come out of the shower, my big son is gone. I look around, I'm running around, I'm trying to figure out because, hey, he don't have no vehicle, so I'm trying to understand, where did my baby go? I look at my two little children and they don't tell me that their brother has left. And so I'm running around confused. I went to the bus stops. I come to find out that he called an Uber and went back with his mother. Whatever the intensity of the confrontation drove my son away. And that's very difficult because I know my ex-wife, I know you right now through this conversation, through this very hard time, you say, then why did you challenge your son in such a way? Because I'm a man. And I don't care who you are or where you will respect me as such. There are parameters, there are guidelines to this thing. When you do not act in accordance with these guidelines, there will be confrontation. And so for every person who aspires to be a man, the question is, what are you gonna do when that confrontation comes? Will you stand up or are you gonna run away? And unfortunately, my son, he did not have the social skills, the emotional skills, the mental awareness to deal with a for real man. He was just a boy. And so when he disappeared, to this day, whatever that relationship was is fractured. And I love my son to death. But on this journey of manhood, he's going to learn how to be a man. In the same way I had my uncle to impart wisdom upon me on how to navigate this, I really do hope that he has someone who loves him as much as my uncle loves me, as much as my father loves me, and as much as I love him, to impart the information that being a man is a very difficult journey. Navigating grief is a very difficult task. Having the emotional awareness and the emotional skills to still deal with pain and be a man and stand up and do the things that are required. It's hard. And I think this is a part of the conversation that too many men, we don't have these conversations on how we be a man, to be a good person, to be a well-rounded person, and through understanding your feelings to still have the assertiveness and the aggressiveness to be sure that you protect your family and that you guide your family and you do the hard things that most people do not have the capacity to do. In my opinion, this is what it means to be a good man. And so if you're going through grief, if you've lost a loved one, if you have to say goodbye to your children at the most inopportune times, if we don't talk to each other on how we do the best that we can, then it's going to be hard for lots of men. And I know there are a lot of men who are struggling, and all I can do is encourage you to continue to do the best that you can. If you have an uncle or a father or a man or a mentor in your life that imparts this information upon you, love him and cherish him, because there will come a day when you have to say goodbye. In the time that you have with your children, hug them and love them and show them with your actions how much they mean to you, because there will be a time that you have to say goodbye. And navigating these hardships is one of the most important skills to have as a man.
The Greatest American Alive.